Every time you see an Adventist property, whether it be a church, a school, a hospital, a nursing home, an empty plot of land, it is a reminder that Jesus has not come yet. And because Jesus has not come yet, this church, this movement, we are still on mission. So all of our property, that is there to facilitate. It's to facilitate soldiers like you and me coming into these buildings to get recharged and fired up to go back into battle. These properties are there existing because we want to bring people in from battle, bandage them up and heal their wounds and send them back out into battle. These properties don't exist so that we can say, look how great the Seventh-day Adventist Church has become. Look at all the properties we owned. No. They're there to facilitate ministry. Now I'm pleased and privileged to be at Mount Gilead. You know what Mount Gilead means? Mount Gilead means hill of testimony. So this building, these individuals seated in these pews, testimonies. God has just taken us through 2018, and I'm sure you have testimonies. God is taking us into 2019, where I'm sure you will have testimonies. But I want to give you some advice. Mount Gilead is in transition. Not only from 2018 into 2019, but from one lead pastor to another. I've been the head elder at Apple Creek for 10 years, so I know a little bit something about this. I've gone through several transitions. God is about to do something incredible with this church. Amen. Do you believe that? Yes. Amen. Your new pastor should come and find three things in your church. Your new pastor should find unity. You should be unified in your vision and your purpose. If we're not quite there yet, you have some time to work that out before the pastor gets here. The new pastor should find a loving church. I'm going to talk a little bit about my sermon. And he should find a praying church. He should also find a church that is connected. Connected to Jesus. As we're going to see in our sermon, for without him we can do nothing. I've got the preliminaries out of the way, so let's go to work. There was a young boy who lived in a big house. And he had a big backyard. He was always curious about the neighborhood around him. But he couldn't see much of the neighborhood. Because in front of that big house, in back of that big yard, was a bigger building. And on top of that bigger building, there was a cross that stood high and lifted up. So because of that building and that cross, he couldn't see the neighborhood. But he was always curious. So one day the gardener left the gate opened. And the young boy said, this is my opportunity to go out and explore the neighborhood. So he ran through the gate and he began to explore the neighborhood. But while exploring the neighborhood, he got lost. He had no idea where he was, and he began to cry. A police officer saw the young boy crying and said, what's wrong with you, son? I'm lost. I can't find my way home. Well, what is your address? Asked the police officer. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, well, what is the names of your mom and your dad? Mom and dad. The officer was puzzled. He said, okay. What is your phone number? I don't know. The police officer said, son, how am I going to help you? I can't help you. The little boy began to cry even more. The officer felt helpless and hopeless. And then the young boy said, Mr. Policeman, I remember something. Behind my house, there's a building with a cross on it. But if you take me to the cross, I can find my way home. Amen. I don't know who's here today. They might be lost in the neighborhood, but I'm going to take us to the cross. Is that all right? Yes. On this pulpit is engraved a beautiful reminder. It says, "Sir, that they may see Jesus." It is my hope today that you will see Jesus. You will hear Jesus. You'll experience Jesus. You'll have an encounter with Jesus. If you've walked away from Jesus, you'll return to Jesus. If you have not yet accepted Jesus, that you accept Jesus. I'm going to lift up Jesus today with everything that I have within me. Is that all right? Yes. Let us pray. Father in heaven, all that I am and all that I have now, I put it into your hands. Use me as an instrument for your glory. It's not much, God, but speak now, for we, your people, are listening. In Jesus' name, amen. John chapter 15 is a very exciting chapter of God's holy word. Just like Mount Gilead was on the brink of a transition, the disciples in John chapter 15 are on the brink of transition. To get the full force and meaning of John chapter 15, we've got to go back to John chapter 13. John chapter 13 tells us a couple of things. It tells us that Jesus and his disciples were at the feast of the Passover. Because they're at the feast of the Passover, we know that it is March or April. Because Passover always takes place during March or April. We know it's a full moon. Because Passover always takes place during a full moon. So here are the disciples, March or April, under a full moon at the Last Supper. And you know, at the Last Supper, of course, Jesus washes their feet, and he identifies his betrayer, and he gives them a new commandment. What's the new commandment? That you love one another. Remember, I said your new pastor is looking for three things. One of them is love. I am so glad that Mount Gilead, you understand this new commandment that God has given us, that we love one another. I've read in God's word that if you say you love God and hate your brother, you are what? A liar, and the word of God is not in you. So it's very important, my brothers and sisters, that we have love for one another. By this they shall know that you are with me, if you have love for one another. So I encourage you, love each other unconditionally. Love those, even the ones you don't like. We've got to love one another. John chapter 14, Jesus gives in John chapter 14 the assurance of answered prayer. This passage in John chapter 14 is amazing to me. Along with the assurance of answered prayer, imagine Jesus is going about and he's healing and raising the dead, and he's curing diseases, and he's setting people free from demonic possession. And he says in John chapter 14, the works that I do, what will happen? You will do too. And he goes on to say, and even greater works. Elder, I thought I was in the church of the living God. I thought that would excite you. Jesus is saying to us that the works that he did, we can do, and we can do even greater works. Amen. But my question to you is, do you believe that? Amen. Do you believe that? Can I be honest with you? Yes. I'm not sure if I believe that. I'm not sure. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure. I am not sure. I was preaching one day, and I was preaching on the subject from Acts, where Peter and Paul meet the lame man, and you know what they say? Silver and gold have I none, but such as I have I give to you. Rise up and walk. I was preaching, and I felt the power of the Holy Spirit on me like never before. There was a lame boy in the audience, and I felt like saying to him, rise up and walk. But I didn't do it. I didn't do it. At the end of the sermon, the boy's mom came to me, and she said, while you were preaching, I got scared. I said, you got scared? Why? She said, while you were preaching, my son began to move his feet. While you were preaching, my son was trying to get out of the wheelchair. You've got to understand, my son has not moved all of his life. But I did not believe that I could do the works that Jesus did. And it haunts me to this day. What if I had the belief and I said to Daniel, rise up and walk? What might have God done through me that day? But I didn't believe. I was scared. I was fearful. How many opportunities are you missing because you didn't believe that you could do the works that Jesus did, and even greater works? We have the most awesome power, because Jesus goes on to promise in John chapter 14 another helper, the power of the Holy Spirit. Mount Gilead, do you understand that you have at your disposal a more powerful weapon than Donald Trump, than Putin, than our friend in North Korea? You've got the power of the Holy Spirit, Mount Gilead. What can stand against you? Who can stand against you? You've got the power of the Holy Spirit. You've got the assurance of answered prayer. You've got the love of Jesus. You are unstoppable. So as you transition from one year to another, as you transition from one pastor to another, you've got dynamite power to do great things. You can blow up North York for Jesus. Amen. John chapter 15. Starts off with the ending of John chapter 14. In John 14, Jesus tells them to get ready. I am leaving, and the ruler of this world is coming, and he has nothing in me. He's telling them, get ready. There's a battle coming. And God's people and God's church have to be ready for this battle. So in John chapter 14, he ends with these words, arise, let's go from here. So we know the disciples in John chapter 15 are on the move. But where are they going? John chapter 18 is the next geographic location we're given. John chapter 18 verse 1 tells us that they crossed the brook Kidron east of Jerusalem, and they enter an olive grove or garden. Do you know what garden that is? Gethsemane, where Jesus will be betrayed. So John's chapter 15, 16, and 17 take place in that walk between the Last Supper and the garden. So he's preparing them for battle in John chapter 15, 16, and 17. And in John chapter 15, Jesus begins with these words, I am the true vine. To us, that may just sound poetic. That may just sound like another of Jesus's metaphors. But imagine with me, you are in Maryland, and you're walking by the General Conference head office, and somebody in your group stops and says, I am the true Adventist. That would get your attention. Not even I'm a true Adventist, but I am the true Adventist, which would mean all other Adventists must be like me. And if you're not like me, you're not a true Adventist. That would catch your attention. The same way it caught the disciples' attention. If you go to Isaiah chapter 5, you'll find what's called a Vineyard Song. And in that Vineyard Song, God talks about this vineyard that he cared for, that he planted, that he spaded, and he took care of it. And in verse 7 of Isaiah chapter 5, it says, "And the vineyard of God is the house of Israel." So Israelites always grew up with that belief that they were God's vineyard. As a matter of fact, Herod decorated the temple with a 1,500-pound gold sculpture of a vine to represent Israel being God's vineyard. So this, as it were, is like a slap in the face. Jesus is saying it's not your national distinction. It's not even your religious affiliation. But it is in me, Jesus, that you have your salvation. As good and great as it is to be a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, that is not what saves you. Our salvation, my brothers and sisters, is in Jesus and Jesus alone. He is the genuine, authentic, enduring vine. In that Vineyard Song, God says of Israel, "I expected good grapes from you, but you bore sour grapes. I expected goodness and righteousness from you." So this Jesus, walking March or April, under that full moon, some theologians say stopped at the temple with that golden vine in front of him and said the words, "I am the true vine," to his disciples. That was a sobering wake-up call. And as we transition Mount Gilead, we need to ask ourselves the sobering question: is my faith in Jesus? Or am I just playing church? This is the last of Jesus' 7 I am statements, and you can see them depicted there. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the door. I am the good shepherd. I am the bread of life. I am the resurrection. I am the light of the world. This is the only I am statement that adds something after it. Jesus says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the husbandman or vine dresser or vine grower or farmer," depending on the translation that you read. I can see we don't have many grape growers here. Why is that important? That my Father, he says, is the vine dresser. The most important person in the vine growing process is the husbandman, is the farmer, is the vine grower, is the vine dresser. As a matter of fact, if that person is not skilled, he or she could destroy an entire crop. So God is saying through, I am in supreme control. Amen. That same God who watched over Jesus, that same God watches over you and me. My Father is the vine dresser. So as you transition from one year to the next, from one path to the next, yes, sometimes transition is painful. Sometimes transition is uncomfortable. But understand this: the supreme vine dresser, farmer, vine grower, he is the one who is overseeing this transition. You don't have to fear, because God, we call them in today's vernacular viticulturists. Viticulturists are grape growers. So we have a divine grape grower that's walking through Mount Gilead. But listen to what he says about this vine grower. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. Did you catch that? Every branch in me. We could be in the building. We could appear to be in Christ and not be bearing fruit, and be a branch that the vine dresser has to take away. We could preach God's gospel and be a branch that Jesus has to take away. I can feel the tension. But my philosophy with preaching is you've got to mix tension and celebration. You've got to mix the two. Amen. So let me celebrate with you a little bit. The same translation for takes away could also be translated, he lifts up. Amen. This is important. Why? Because in the grape growing world, sometimes storms come through the vineyard and they blow branches down to the ground. But you see, branches cannot bear fruit if they're running along the ground. Listen to this. Young branches tend to run along the ground. Are you hearing me? Young branches tend to run along the ground. So what the viticulturist does is he walks through the vineyard with a bucket, because when branches begin to run along the ground, they get dirty and they get muddy and they get, I won't say it. So he goes through the vineyard with a bucket and he looks for branches that are running along the ground and he lifts them up, he cleans them off, and he restores them. Amen. So listen, the divine viticulturist, he's walking through Mount Gilead today, and he's looking for branches like you and me who have been blown down by the storms of life, and he has his bucket with him, and he wants to clean us up, and he wants to restore us. Amen. So it doesn't matter what you're going through today. It doesn't matter what 2018 was for you. We understand that life gets difficult, and the storms of life are real. The devil is as a roaring lion. We are in a battle. But God, he's here and he wants to clean you up. Is there some sin that you haven't forgiven yourself for? God is here. He wants to clean you up. Are you feeling depressed and lonely? God is here. He wants to clean you up. Have you stopped returning a faithful tithe and offering because you're angry at the church? God is here. He wants to clean you up. Have you stopped participating in the work of the church because you're upset that you weren't reelected? God is here. He wants to clean you up and restore you. How you ended 2018 does not matter. It doesn't matter how much pain you're feeling right now. It doesn't matter how much hurt you're feeling right now. It doesn't matter how dirty and unworthy you're feeling right now. Our God is here. And he goes on to say, every branch in me that bears fruit, he does what? He prunes. Do you know what that means? Every branch will get the knife. So there are some of us who thought that after we accepted Jesus and went down into that watery grave and we came up a new creature in life, that life would be a bed of roses. We would never experience any difficulties again. Well, I hate to tell you, that's not how it goes. Every branch will get the knife. The viticulturist is concerned with us all making it into the kingdom. It is not my desire that any should perish, but all should come to what? So, in order for the great branch to produce the best possible crop, sometimes what seems to be perfectly good grapes have to be cut away and discarded. Amen. So somebody might be experiencing God's pruning right now. Some good things in your life seem to be carved away. And you cry out at this time, where is God? True. The vine dresser is never closer to the branch than when he's pruning it. To prune the branch, he's got to lovingly handle the branch. He's got to know where to cut, when to cut, how much to cut, what angle to cut at. So I agree with you. Pruning is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. The worst thing a vine dresser can do is leave the vine to itself. The Bible tells us that those who God loves, he chastens. So if you're experiencing God's pruning right now, he's pruning you so that you can bear more fruit. If you're experiencing God's pruning right now, you can rejoice. Amen. Amen. Because you know that a better crop is coming. And if you feel you've received your better crop and that better crop is being pruned, you can rejoice because you know even better is coming. And let me tell you something. If you feel that your life has just been a lifetime of pruning with no substantial growth, you can rejoice because I read somewhere that I have not seen nor ear heard, nor has even entered into the heart minds of man the things that God has prepared for them who love him. Remember the goal. Our goal is not for this life. Our goal is for the life to come. Amen. So please understand, my brothers and sisters. Please understand, preacher. We will be pruned even if we're in Jesus, connected to Jesus. You know, there's a branch that we might see on the vine and it looks so wonderful. It's so lush and it's so green and it's so beautiful. And we would look at it and we say, wow, what a healthy branch on that vine. It must be so connected. But the problem with that leafy, green, lush branch, it's not fulfilling its purpose. Its purpose is not to bear leaves, but to bear fruit. And the energy it's taking to bear leaves, it could have been bearing fruit. So sometimes we see an Adventist and they have nice tailor-made suits and bow ties and shine shoes and they work at the conference and they preach God's word. And we say, look at that great Adventist. And it's just leaves. No fruit. It looks good. It sounds good. It smells good. But it's just leaves. And I can understand. In the Adventist church, maybe not Mount Gilead, but we have some certified leaf inspectors. Yeah. You know, they inspect everybody's life to make sure they're looking like good Adventists. They don't care if you're bearing fruit, just as long as it looks like a good Adventist. So we have families struggling. Husband and wife don't talk all week, sleep in separate rooms. But the minute they pull into the parking lot, they're holding hands. Why? Because the leaf inspector is the greeter. And they'll say, Pastor, I saw Elder Benta come in this morning and he and his wife looked like they were in a row. I think we should discuss this with the church board. Leaf inspectors are running young people out the church. Very true. They have a mental tape measure that measures the length of dress. They have x-ray vision to determine who's wearing jewelry. Leaf inspectors. Can I tell you a story? A couple Friday nights ago, I made it to the gas station just before Sabbath And I was thankful I made it. It was a rough day, but I saw a leaf inspector pull in. And I'm going to be honest with you. I hid. Because I didn't want the leaf inspector to see me. Because he's going to say, imagine Elder Benta works at the conference and he is here on a Sabbath. Not to mention, he's got there after me. But that's how leaf inspectors work. What they do doesn't matter. It's what you do that counts. So I hid from the leaf inspector. Because I didn't want my business in the streets. And you know what leaf inspectors do? They embellish everything. Yes. So I can understand. If perchance there is a leaf inspector here today, the vine dresser is here also. Amen. And the vine dresser wants to prune away those leaves so that you can bear fruit. Amen. If I'm honest, there are times in my life when I've been a leaf inspector. You know those leaf inspectors. We complain about the conference. We complain about the pastor. We complain about the elder. We complain about the preacher. We just complain and complain and complain and complain and complain. And then we wonder why our kids don't like the church. Because every Sabbath they've heard me as a leaf inspector complaining about everything. So like I did, I had to take a stock of myself. And I had to be honest and say, Kevin, so much of your life is just leaves, man. Jesus is soon to come. And he's looking for a church and an individual that's bearing fruit, not leaves. So what? You're the head elder. So what? So what? You go to every prayer meeting. You go to the hospital visits. You go to every seminar. You study Greek and Hebrew online. Who cares? If you're not connected to the true vine, so what? We live in an age where connection is so important, especially for those young people like me. Everywhere we go, we want to make sure we have a Wi-Fi connection, right? You ever go get a Wi-Fi connection, it says connected, no internet? Does that bother you? Yeah. But I had to be honest with myself. My life said connected, no Jesus. I was connected to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, but not to Jesus. I was connected to the fellowship at Apple Creek, but not to Jesus. I was connected to my wife because she became Adventist before I did, but not to Jesus. So some of us are connected, but we're connected to the wrong connection, and we have no Jesus. And as we transition from one year to the next, from one pastor to the next, we've got to make sure that we're connected with Jesus. Amen. Our connection is so vitally important. Don't get me wrong. We've got to be connected to our local church. We've got to connect it to our conference, our union, our division, and our world church. Absolutely, 100%. But our primary connection is to Jesus. And if we're connected to Jesus, all those other connections would be so much more powerful and meaningful and productive. I remember when I became a young elder, I had an assignment to go to the hospital and pray for a dying lady. I got to the hospital, and I remember some advice that I received from someone who mentored me. He said, every time you have the opportunity, preach. So I got in front of that hospital bed and I began to preach. And nurses started to come and listen. Doctors started to come and listen. Other patients started to come and listen. I preached. And I prayed a prayer for that woman. A couple days later, I called to check up on her. And they said, it's a miracle. She recovered. We sent her home. That was the highest and lowest point of my ministry. I was high on Kevin and low on Jesus. I said, look what I did. I prayed for this woman and she was healed. I forgot who the healing power came from. And I wandered in my ministry for a number of years because of that experience. Then I remembered, Jesus. Amen. Jesus. Jesus. It's not about Kevin. I can't do anything. So someone here today, back in John chapter 13, Peter said, I'll never deny you, but Jesus knew Peter was too self-confident. So somebody here today, your confidence might be in your degree, your vocation, your grades, your good looks, your bank account. And yes, your position at the church. If I'm honest with you, and I believe in being a transparent preacher, there are times in my life where my role as head elder at Apple Creek big up my head a little bit. Youngest head elder there ever, elder of one of the largest churches at such a young age, big up my head. But God humbled me. And he had to humble me to save me. So somebody here might be going through the same thing. The same way God humbled and reused me, even though I reached a low point in my life, in my ministry, and you might be there now, God can restore you. Amen. Surrender your will to his. God can restore you. My time is going. Jesus says to his disciples, you are already clean because of the words I have spoken to you. I'm going to say something that might get me in trouble. It's not enough to read God's word. It's not enough to study God's word. It's not enough to teach God's word. It's not enough to preach God's word. It's not even enough to believe God's word. If God's word is not having an impact on the way you live your life, if God's word is not having an impact on the way I live my life, so what? God's word must impact the way we live, even in the dark times. You've heard the story of the preacher. He's not an Adventist preacher, but he took his own life about a month and a half ago. What was interesting, he took his own life because he was depressed and he had anxiety. What's interesting, leading up to him taking his life, he preached a 3-week seminar from God's word on how to deal with depression and anxiety. He preached God's word. He taught God's word. He believed God's word. But in his darkest moment, God's word had no effect on his life. It's not enough, brothers and sisters. God's life must be internalized in us and lived out. Amen. The word in Greek is so forceful. It's like God's word must be internalized in you till you live like Jesus did. Are you living like Jesus? Am I living like Jesus? I got work to do. Yes, sir. If you're in a dark moment in your life right now, you still got to remain a Christian. You still got to hold on to the hope and the promises in this word. It's nice that we can quote it to other people going through stuff when we're not. But when we're going through stuff, how do we stand? How do we live? How do we cope? we've got to internalize God's word. And it's got to be lived out in a life poured out to Jesus. If we want to be successful in this transition, God's word has to be lived out in each of us individually so that collectively we can accomplish all that God wants for us under the leadership of our new pastor and in 2019. God's word is like his pruning shears. But we've got to spend time in God's word. We've got to spend time reading and meditating and praying on it. It's not enough just to come to Sabbath service and hear a preacher spoon feed you from God's word. You've got to read it for yourself. You've got to spend time in it. It's got to become a part of you. And the hardest part is if reading God's word and you begin to feel within you that there's some changes I've got to make. Please, that's God pruning. It's God's pruning. Obey. There's another branch on the vine that's called the sucker branch. The sucker branch is an interesting branch. It takes nutrients, it takes nutrients, it takes nutrients, it takes. But it never bears fruit. And as a matter of fact, it begins to infect the branches around it, and it hinders their fruit production. The sucker branch. I have met some Adventist sucker branches before. They're always so negative. They suck all the joy out of being a Christian. You see them on Sabbath and you don't even want to say hi, happy Sabbath to them because just the look on their faces is so miserable. And then when they open their mouth, it's all negative. The conference don't know what they're doing. The president needs to go. That property manager should buy everybody a building. I don't know what he's doing. The pastor needs to go. The elder is no good. Negative. The preacher preaches too long. He can't preach anyway. Negative. They suck the life out of you. The sucker branch. If I'm honest, there are times in my life when I've been a sucker branch. But the viticulturist, the vine dresser, the grape grower, he walks through the vineyard looking for sucker branches. And what he does when he finds a sucker branches is he clips off the sucker and he gives them an opportunity to grow again. Amen. So if you're here this morning and you are exhibiting characteristics of the sucker branch, I can understand. Our church is in difficult position right now. We're hearing things about ordination and compliance, and we're having pastoral moves, and there's so much going on. And for some of us, the Seventh-day Adventist church is becoming unrecognizable. We're used to the good old days, and we're wondering what's happening to our church. What's happening to our leaders? Some of these things back in the days would never happen under that leadership. What's happening to my church? And some of us, my Lord has delayed his coming. I thought I'd be in the kingdom by now. If you're feeling a little bit negative, God is here. And he wants to clip that sucker and give you an opportunity to regrow so that you can bear fruit. Amen. And understand, when we're being a sucker branch, we're not only affecting ourselves, we're affecting the corporate body that we call Mount Gilead. Sucker branches, we are inhibiting the power of God to be unleashed as He would like in our churches when we're sucker branches. I've had to learn that. Church leadership is hard. I can understand why Moses hit the rock. I would have hit, man, if I gone through some stuff at Apple Creek, I would have hit the rock 4, 5, 6 times. Church leadership is hard. And sometimes it turns us into sucker branches. The members don't come out. The members. So I had to allow Jesus to clip off my sucker a couple times at Apple Creek. And what I discovered, when I allowed that to happen, God moved in ways that I never imagined. Some of the most difficult people that I complained about became my most ardent supporters. And the thing is this: don't be a sucker branch at your workplace. Don't be a sucker branch in your home. Don't be a sucker branch at school. It's not just at church you're not to be a sucker branch. Did you hear me? We've got to live our lives as fruit-bearing Christians out in the world, not just inside of the safe confines of Mount Gilead. I read your mission statement that in the context of Revelations 14, 6 to 12, you want to evangelize under the auspices of the three angels' message. Huh? Good old Adventist doctrine. But the spirit of the pioneers must be in us. Amen. If you have not read the stories of our pioneer Adventists that moved this work forward with such force, I encourage you to read it. If you don't like to read, there's a wonderful movie produced from Australia called Tell It to the World. Google it. Watch Tell It to the World. It's about 2.5 hours, and it chronicles the history of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I believe every Adventist should see it. It will inspire you to see how whenever these band of believers felt like they were becoming sucker branches, they retreated to God's word for guidance. Mount Gilead, we are on the brink of something awesome. I can feel it. I can feel it. But we've got to be connected to the true vine. I'm going to give you some homework. The fruit of the Spirit. The fruit. See what? Christians like to say fruits of the Spirit. That is not what the text says. The text says fruit. Which means as Christians we should have all of those characteristics resident within us. So you have a reminder every Sabbath when you come: humility, patience, faithfulness, self-control, love, kindness, joy, peace, goodness. The fruit of the Spirit. Are those characteristics resident in you at all times? I've got work. I've got work. The Bible says in verse 5 that Jesus says, "Abide in me and I in you, for without me you can do nothing." The word abide in John's gospel is very important. Abide, to continue, to persevere, to remain. And the way that John uses it, it's a command with an ongoing responsibility. So it means to abide and keep abiding. It's a moment-by-moment decision that you and I have to make to abide in Christ. How would it change your life if you thought moment by moment, I've got to remain, I've got to abide, I've got to persevere in my connection with the true vine, Jesus? How would that change the conversations that you had? How would that change the places that you went? How would that change the things that you do? the things you listen to, the things you watch. If you thought to yourself, I've got to remain, I've got to abide, I've got to continue. For without me, Jesus says, you can do nothing. Mount Gilead, I know you have great plans for the future. I know you have great expectation for the future. But unless we're connected with the true vine, we can do nothing. I've had to learn that one of my problems is I'm a problem solver. If you come to me with a problem, I'm going to solve it. That's just how I'm wired. My wife came to me one day and says, honey, here's a situation, and what do you think? And I just began to give solutions. And she said to me, Elder, have you even prayed about this? And I said, no. And from that day forward, I learned that even in the smallest of decision making, I've got to take it to Jesus. Because without Jesus, we can do nothing. My brothers and sisters, Jesus is soon to come. Whether we believe it or not, whether we're ready or not, Jesus is soon to come. And this church, the Adventist church, this movement, must remember our connection is to Jesus. Yes. Each one of us as individuals must be connected with Jesus. And Jesus is more concerned about our potential than our present circumstance. So it doesn't matter where you are right now. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You can bear fruit. Doesn't matter how low you are. Jesus can lift you up. My appeal is simple. If you want to be connected to the true vine, Jesus, please stand with me. If my pianist can play something nice and low for me, please. This moment is between you and Jesus. Don't worry about the leaf inspectors. Don't worry about the sucker branches. You worry about you right now. And if you feel you need to come forward when I begin to speak, please do. If you're here this morning and you want to remain connected to Jesus, but you understand that I need the life-giving power of the vine grower to keep me connected, just join me here at the altar. If you're here this morning and you realize that there are parts of my life that's just leaves, and you want to ask that vine grower to prune away those leaves so the energy that I'm using to bear leaves, I can bear fruit, just join me here at the altar. If you're here today and you're feeling a bit like the sucker branch, a bit negative, feel like you're coming to church Sabbath after Sabbath and you're just taking in all this good nutrients and taking in all this good fellowships, but you're not really bearing fruit. You're just taking nutrients and taking nutrients and taking nutrients, but you want that to stop today. Join me here at the altar. You know, A great branch can be severed from the vine and still bear leaves but never fruit. But the vine dresser, he goes through the vineyard, he looks for those branches and he grafts them back in. There's some of us here today, we're in church. We look like we're connected, but we know we're not. We might be experiencing some hurt from a brother or sister in the church, but we want to be grafted back into the fellowship again. Just join me here at the altar. If you're here today and you've been contemplating baptism, but you have not taken that step of baptism yet, just join me here at the altar. If you just begun thinking about baptism today, he wants to pray for you. There's still time. If you're more connected to the Seventh-day Adventist Church than you are to Jesus, join us here at the altar. Don't worry about who's looking around. This is between you and Jesus. Don't worry about what people might say. It's between you and Jesus.
Our dear Father in heaven, Lord, if we haven't heard a serious, a timely message all of this year, but we heard it today, Lord. There are many of us who had a reason not to come to church all these weeks, but we made it today to hear the word that you needed to place in our hearts. Dear Father, at this time, I would like to make mention of every single individual that have walked up to the altar for different reasons. Those who wanted to give their hearts to you today, who wanted to learn more about you and be a part of the family of this church, I pray, Lord, that before too long that you speak to them and keep the fire going until they are able to come to the fold. I pray for the rest of us as leaders and the members of this church, Mount Gilead. The name says we are peacekeepers. The name says that we are to love one another. So Lord, help us to live the life. Help us to absorb every single word that was uttered through your servant this morning. Not just the readers, not just the teachers, not just the commanders, but help us to be the livers of your word, Lord. When people walk into this church, when we talk to each other, help them to see Christ and the word in us, Lord. So now, Lord, if we have been any stubborn all this time, as you have given us this one last chance to seek your help in order to get away from all those habits that are not proper for a Christian, I pray, Lord, at this time you send that divine power amongst us and cleanse us, Lord. We commit every single individual in this sanctuary at this time bowed. Whatever the needs that we are going through, whatever the problems that we are going through, as we give our hearts to you, as we commit, reconsecrate our lives to you, Lord, through faith, by keeping trust in you, May we come to realization that everything that has happened in our lives are working together for the good of our souls. So Lord, the friendship, the love that we have as a church, as a family, as friends, as visitors, I pray, Lord, that it will not end in this place, but we know that you will place a Mount Gilead up in heaven, so that through obedience as we live, as we overcome all these trials and temptations, I pray that we'll be able to be a part of that big family when you come in the clouds of heaven. I commit this prayer into your loving arms in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
So on the authority of the Word of God, go forth and bear fruit.